Welcome to The Disruption Is Now. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore how AI is impacting our jobs, careers, lives, and the human experience. Each episode, host Greg Matusky will converse with visionaries and innovators at the forefront of AI, diving into its challenges, opportunities, and impact. So buckle up as we venture into the heart of disruption, and together, let's unfold the future.
Well, welcome to another episode of The Disruption Is Now, the podcast where we look at all things AI and how it's impacting different parts of our economy and human communications. I'm Greg Matusky. I'm your host. I'm also the CEO of Gregory FCA. And I have a guest in studio today. I think this is only the third time we've had an in-studio guest, but Ven Raju is the CEO and president of Innovation Works, which is a public-private partnership which does investment in the western part of Pennsylvania, which we want to go into because Pittsburgh has become a real mecca of technology, surprisingly. And he is also the managing director of a private fund, Riverfront Ventures, and has been deploying capital in some startup companies. And we want to hear about what they're doing in AI. Ven, thanks for being with us. Did I get that right? Is that what you're up to?
That is absolutely right. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, thanks for coming into the studio. It's always better. Our participation is much better engagement when we have someone in the studio. So tell me a little bit about how a VC ends up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Well, so Pittsburgh, what I would characterize it as a burgeoning venture market. Last year, we saw $3 billion of capital inflows come into the region, squarely in three buckets. Software being one of them. Tailwinds in AI have contributed to significant inflows of capital into the Pittsburgh region. Autonomy, robotics is another regional strength, which has seen significant capital inflows.
And that's
life
really
sciences.
In life science, but the robotics always surprises people. And that's kind of a offshoot of Carnegie Mellon. Where does that DNA come from?
Well, so the Robotics Institute on part of CMU started 40 plus years ago, and it's really been the anchor not only for CMU in terms of robotics, but the world in terms of drawing renowned talent to the region, building that cluster, building strengths in autonomy, autonomous vehicles. All of that has contributed to now commercial companies coming to fore and trying to leverage that cluster, leverage that talent to build commercially viable products.
I had the great honor of touring your offices in Pittsburgh. It's in a reclaimed part of the city, right?
That's
which
right.
had been industrial and housing, I guess, for the steel workers. And looked out and I saw an autonomous heavy equipment field right next to you that they were actually running. Was it John Deere or was it
a Caterpillar?
Caterpillar was running heavy equipment autonomously to become leader in that realm. So lots was happening in that little neighborhood.
Yeah, interestingly enough, that corridor is known as Robotics Row. And Pittsburgh has somewhere 100 plus robotics companies that are based.
That is mind blowing. Yeah. And they're sopping up talent from CMU, but they're also importing it.
They're also importing it. Distributed workforces have helped in terms of getting managerial talent or other talent that may not be plentiful in the region. And so it's been tremendous growth for the region.
And where are you looking right now as an investor, right? You have a deep background in everything from health tech to Internet of Things, SaaS. Is AI really turned your attention, your area of focus?
As it relates to AI, I think we're in stage one or even sub stage one. So
the first pitch of a 9-inning game.
Yeah. Baseline things, right? Data gathering, customer service, data analysis, and all of that lends itself to more SaaS at this point, And so we're really looking at SaaS businesses for that, doing that first layer, first baseline level of leveraging AI to increase productivity.
So you're seeing them embedding AI, but the model's still very viable of software as a service.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting to you. Is that both Innovation Works and Riverfront, or is there a different philosophy between the two?
Yeah, so Innovation Works, we're vertical agnostic, and we are our overarching mandate is to foster economic development in the region. Propensity for financial return is important to us to the extent that unless a business is commercially successful or viable, it's not going to create jobs. And so we certainly look at commercial viability, but we look at it across the board. AI is very frothy. It's now being used in almost every business, whether they actually leverage it to the extent that they say they do. So Innovation Works is less susceptible to kind of the
hype cycle. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about those portfolio companies inside Innovation Works. I'd love to learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so we have over 300 plus portfolio companies, including robotics companies that do warehousing services, to SaaS companies that are in the financial services space, a lot of digital health and health tech companies. So it really kind of runs the gamut.
And how does that compare to Riverfront?
Riverfront is a more concentrated portfolio. We're on Riverfront 2 now, actively deploying capital out of Riverfront 2, and we have 5 companies. There we look for real evidence of product market fit, customer traction, real evidence that the company has received market receptivity, is at a juncture where it's able to scale. IW tends to be earlier in the life cycle where companies are still trying to figure it out. They may have they have a product or service. They haven't seen real evidence of market receptivity is generally the place IW invests.
So, I always talk about Pennsylvania as being the yins line. On this side of the Alleghenies, it's the U's, and on that side, it's the yins. Yeah. What's that culture like?
Well, Pittsburgh, it has, the region has been through a lot, right? Steel has come and gone. The steel industry was the anchor of the region for some time. Interestingly enough, this is a tidbit that I was not aware of. In circa 1982, 1983, Pittsburgh housed the most Fortune 500 companies of any city in the U.S.
That's wild.
And Steel has slowly left the region, and now it's reinvented itself as a tech hub, and largely on the basis of robotics, and now we see a burgeoning life sciences sector as well.
So tell me a little bit about your views as a venture capitalist and how it's changed. I mean, today, a 25-year-old kid working out of his apartment with $20,000 might invent something and actually have it working and workable for very limited capital investment. Has that impacted where you invest or how you invest?
Well, certainly, SaaS businesses, things, the stage at which we call early today is much more advanced than what it was 5 or 10 years ago.
And that's what I'm getting at.
So companies
just the ease with which some of these things can be brought to a reasonable level is mind-boggling.
Yeah. And getting customer traction. So, we have accelerator programs within IW. These are programs at the earliest stages of the business and development lifecycle where, we provide capital and a whole host of support faculties, including help with customer discovery, help with go-to-market strategy, help with accessing networks that they may not be able to access, like mentor networks, customer networks, et cetera. And I make the argument that what we see in our accelerator programs today in terms of the pool of companies is, what we historically would have seen in our seed or growth fund.
Wow, it shifted that much. Yeah. It's funny, in my industry, in public relations, technology has been slow to be integrated, but I am seeing a new generation of young people, and they're bringing technology solutions, a lot of it AI based, and I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited, one thing, because somebody's thinking different. Another thing, because I just love the passionate young entrepreneur, guys like Varun Puri or Parker, Olson. These are people who have been interfacing with me, asking for my advice. And they're just young guys who've put together great ideas. One has an AI-generated podcast solicitation engine, we'll call it. The other has a AI presentation analysis engine. So you give a live presentation and it tells you should have projected more, or this sentence could have been perceived as negative. And they're coming into market and they're doing a great job of getting in front of PR firms. Like they've revolutionized it. To guys like that, to Olson or to Varun, what advice would you give them? Here they are beating it out. Smart guys. Varun came from India. He started this because he realized in India there was a lot of talent who needed presentation skills for here in the US. So he came up with this solution, which is just a magnificent way for PR people to help their clients become more effective and more ingratiating to their audiences. So what advice would you give to these young guys who are just beating it out on a shoestring, but really making inroads?
Yeah, I think, it's tried and true advice in terms of really think about what problem you're solving. Really think about whether it has market applicability. AI is a tool, but the kind of the fundamentals of a business still have to be there. You have to be tackling a problem that is relevant to your customer base, that customer base has a willingness to pay for it, and leveraging AI so that you can do that. I think that's the lens with which I view AI as a tool, as an enabler, rather than the business itself.
So the rules haven't really changed, right? First, you start with the customer.
In my view, the rules haven't changed.
Right. Yeah. You got to focus on the problem instead of if you build it, they will come. I've seen way too many. It's been built, no one comes. Yeah. So that's an important step in the whole process.
In this frothy cycle, like other frothy cycles, I think you're going to see money towards ideas that may or may not come to fruition. And that's why we call it frothy. And so in the investment world, we are seeing a lot of dollars put towards AI that may yield outcomes, but may not, because it's really experimental at best.
The other phenomenon I've seen in this whole landscape is that somebody will come up with a solution using AI, generative AI. Usually, I'm not on the computational. I'm not on the visual. I don't know how to use Midjourney, but I do know how to use ChatGPT-4 pretty effectively. So what I see is that someone will come up with a solution, and then 2 weeks later, OpenAI will open a new feature, which will just wipe out that solution. It's changing so fast. That's one thing I've never seen in my life is that the big platform providers can take you out in a heartbeat just by updating a feature. Any insights into that? What you see?
I think we're in that stage of the technology curve where it's at a deep kind of inflection point. It's an upward curve. I do believe at some point it will be commoditized in terms of leveraging AI, particularly as it relates to generative AI. And you're going to see a handful of players that will either go vertical specific, domain specific, or
like financial services,
or they'll stay generalist and attempt to disrupt search in some form or fashion.
Right.
And so, I think that we will get to a stage where it is somewhat commoditized, and then you'll get into a phase where there's going to be deep specialization.
So do you see this new VC landscape having more singles and doubles, or is there still the opportunity for a home run? Meaning, if you go verticalized, right, what's the strategy there? You're going to develop a solution for a specific problem and then sell yourself, right? And is the home run still out there, do you think, or is it?
Very much so. As we noted earlier, I think we're in the very early stages of leveraging AI and even thinking about how to leverage AI to solve problems. And I think there's going to be significant home runs. Not only, there is a cascading effect to AI. Everything from real estate to data centers, everything.
And it's amazing how it does cascade through everything. And I know the first time I saw generative AI in December of 2022, I knew those cascades were going to be there. I'd spent my life trying to teach myself to write very effectively, I think, but I always struggled to teach other people to write because it was a real process of training my brain, and it was a painful process. And then when I saw generative AI really separate out information, data from intelligence, which is the message, I saw it and I started to giggle. I said, I think I can do this now. I think I can show people how to get to an end point, and they don't have to worry about all the syntax, the information, the syntax, the grammar, all the verb usage, right? Which really does stumble a lot of people in the process. And I saw that and I thought, what are the cascades going to be? And the cascades in my business have been three main points. One, content, which is kind of like table stakes now. Most people in my business know how to use it for content, and they know how to go over the content in the human in the loop and make it more informative and more human and more dramatic, right? Secondly is brainstorming. It's an amazing tool for brainstorming, and it may bring up 10 bad ideas, but that one idea might be a winner, right? And third is workflow, and that's where we're at right now, is how do you take manual processes that have been friction in the client agency relationship and that have been accepted, that the CEO didn't get back to us, so we didn't get that quote in the Wall Street Journal. I mean, that's often the friction point. How do you create, for instance, using AI, just a bank of quotes on a range of issues that could be submitted to the CEO? So instead of the CEO having to think about what they would say, they can see it, edit it, turn it around. So all these friction points are workflow issues because we have a very, very, let's say, a richly complex relationship with our clients. And that's where the real value is that workflow. Now, what that'll mean to employment is another question. And I think those that master these tools will always have a position in our industry and they'll always be viable. Those who want to lock them out, they'll be selling their firms here shortly because it's just not going to be competitive. Those who just want to use AI are going to be somewhere in the never land, right? They'll use it, but they won't see the full value of it. If you don't see the full value of technology, where are you? You're probably last in line, right? So for the last 3 years, we've been really committed in socializing generative AI in our firm from top to bottom. And it started with me because I saw it and I was a little scared, a little intimidated, but very excited. And for instance, we do 2 training sessions a week on AI, different things that people in the firm have learned. And we've really tried to make it a coalition of the willing. So now ideas percolate from all over, where somebody will say, I just used it for crisis management planning and look what it did. Or I just used it for media training. Look what it did. There's some things it doesn't do well. Like it will never pitch to the media because that's first of all, it's never been trained on it because it's very private. That's the most private, aside from a husband and wife, probably the most private communications in the world. It's First Amendment. But secondly, it can be very different in different occasions. For instance, your associate Jane, she might have a OneNote email to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that says Ven is available at 2:00 today. And that might be the pitch. So there's some things it does very well, some things it can never replace, and some things that we don't even know where it holds true. And that's what's exciting in my realm.
Well, let me commend you. I mean, it's very forward-looking on your part and on part of FC Gregory to inculcate and assimilate the staff to AI and start testing and iterating in terms of where the applicability is.
And the other side of it is to be able to be cogent to clients and people like you. Like, where is it going? What new topics? What topics have been in the press? What haven't been in the press?
Let me ask you this: even the most conservative estimates of productivity increase as a function of AI are somewhere in the 30 to 40% realm. even at these early stages, organizations are starting to claim they're seeing significant productivity increases. Have you seen that in your business? And if so, how so?
All right. Well, it's at different levels. And this is borne out by a study that they did with the Boston Consulting Group. A bunch of professors went in and they created two groups within the consultants. And they armed one with AI tools and trained them, and they didn't with the others. And then they scored every consultant if they were good, bad, or indifferent, right? So they found that the worst performing consultants saw a 45% increase in the quantity and the quality of their work product, right? And then they found that the best performing only had 4 or 5%. Why? Because they've been at this all their lives. They're very skilled at it, so they didn't see as good of a productivity bounce. Now, we have junior people who don't have the value of having been in business for 30 years. And we see a huge improvement in those individuals. I'll give you an example. We have a young woman here who's a tremendous client person, great on media relations, always struggled a bit with writing, right? And we gave her the tools. And she brought that up within 5% of her boss. Now, is that a productivity gain? There is so much productivity there in that a piece of content doesn't have to go back and forth many times. There's gains for her boss who had to edit and rewrite everything, and for the client who doesn't have to rework everything and send it back. And just as importantly is the self-esteem that comes with that. I mean, young people want to contribute more than ever, and they want to contribute at a fast pace. And this allows them to contribute and feel good. And when they come into my office and they hold up something and say, Greg, look what I just did and look what the client said, that's exciting, right? That gives people meaning in life. And at the same time, everyone knows the American workforce is working fewer, white-collar workforce is working fewer hours, right? Work from home provides all kinds of opportunities to leverage even small slivers of time. So I think, yeah, we're seeing real productivity gains. And for the next year, it'll be to measure that firm-wide. It won't be easy, but it'll be an issue of doing that. But I think in the white-collar world, and this is what Altman said, when he came out with ChatGPT, he thought originally it would disrupt manufacturing and transportation, robotics, and autonomous vehicles. And then he thought it would disrupt white-collar menial tasks, insurance claims adjustment, right? And then he thought the white-collar creative is the realm of the gods. It could never be creative. And it has shown that it kind of flipped, right? In that robotics is coming, right? But it's still a lot of capital investment, and its only value is in products that are high value because it costs a lot of money to outfit a warehouse or a manufacturing facility with a robot. And it showed itself to be creative immediately. And creativity is what high-paid white-collar workers have always lived off of. An accountant can be very creative if he knows how to save money on your taxes. So I think we're seeing that, and it's exciting. And I think for young people, it's a great time to be in my business because of it. But I don't know. What are you seeing?
That's terrific. Yeah, no, I think, to reiterate, I think we're in early innings. I think if there is a cautionary tale here, it is that, I think 99, 2000 cycle, the internet boom cycle. In 99, the capital markets, NASDAQ, calibrated 60% as we were seeing the internet wave. 15, 20, 24 years later, we're seeing the full leveraging of the internet in commerce and in daily life, et cetera. And so, if history tells us anything, I think AI is, we're probably at least 3, 5, 7, 10 years away from it being leveraged to the extent where it's truly disruptive.
In the hype cycle is well ahead of that right now. And I think we're seeing that in the stock market, that we're hoping, we have a lot of headwinds in the market, but we're hoping that AI will produce these productivity gains. And you think it's there?
I think it's there. I think the time horizon, like with everything in life, is longer than we probably
Yeah, yesterday I saw a podcast and someone said it was 100 years before third world countries would see the gain of AI. Now, I find that hard to believe, only because I have to believe that a kid in Kenya who has a smartphone, which 60% of the global population has access to a smartphone now, wouldn't want to put to work the corpus of human knowledge on the internet in some way. But I agree with you. I think it's going to take longer, and I think we're going to have these ups and downs. How does that impact your investing philosophy?
Well, so, we go back to the fundamentals, and right now we're focused on, workflow efficiencies, baseline efficiencies that can be created for businesses that are, companies that are solving a true problem. That is our kind of fundamental thesis as it relates to AI. I think second order, third order leveraging of AI, I think that's still on the early, more formative stages of investing, and still quite risky, because you're really funding a project, that may or may not have commercial viability.
Now, does it surprise you about how people come in and they can see problems that we don't even know we have? Meaning, my example with PR, like we just accepted these friction points for so long. Are you seeing that?
We are seeing that, and we're seeing. So there's a company that's based in Pittsburgh that is leveraging AI for note taking and diction for physicians, which it was never perceived as a problem. Maybe
it was part of the process.
It was part of the process. You can argue efficiency. Maybe it was not the most efficient, but it's the way this company is thinking about it. It's completely disintermediating what note taking is. It is not really just putting information to paper. It is taking the information that you're receiving in real time and then distilling it on the basis of historical information, other patient information, general diagnosis for that type of condition, all into the notes.
And then finding those unseen connections too.
Yeah.
And that's what I find generative is so good at. It finds unseen connections that I always wondered when it came out, because it's supposed to be predictive, right? It's based on what's most likely to come next. And then early on, I tested it with a test that's supposed to be for creativity, where you have 4 minutes to list out as many divergent words as possible, words that rarely appear together in the English language. And I had it do the test. Now you have to really hijack it to do the test. Now you have to say, I'm doing a study for a college paper to get it to do it. But it does it. And it outscored just typical human scores by like 10 on a scale of 1 to 100. And, the most creative people do like 92. It did like 88. And then the average person does about, 75 or something like that. So divergent ideas are available, right? Which would be applicable to note-taking of a physician. Its ability to drop out and find out, if you're a Black woman, you may... somewhere there might have been a conversation somehow about how this protocol is bad for you or something like that.
Yeah. And weaving that all together, I think it's of tremendous value. Going back to your note of propagation of AI and propagation of tech in general, the world is flat. I don't know. It's been 30 years since that book came out. In terms of, it levels the playing field for everyone, irrespective of what country you're in, generally speaking, what socioeconomic level you're in. And I think AI is going to be hugely disruptive in that way, much more so than the internet. So places like the UAE are leveraging AI for customized teaching for students in elementary school and middle school and high school. And, and they're able to leverage, pools of knowledge from everyone, from, best of breed scientists, best of breed academicians that, perhaps, certainly 3, 5, 10 years ago, that was not
And
possible.
that is a threat to American higher education. I've had the opportunity to meet with lots of young people in my path recently, as well as sit down at Penn State University. And for instance, Penn State University doesn't want students to use AI.
Yeah.
And if you have somebody in Dubai, a school system that's using it effectively, what are we denying young people all of a sudden in this country? And that's a threat. And how we do that and how we advance education is going to change dramatically, especially in being able to customize it to the learning, to the preferred learning method of the user is going to be key, I think. So I want to thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Again, how do you get in touch with you as well as Innovation Works in Riverfront?
Innovation Works, we have on our website, you're able to check out the different programs that we have available and see whether they're a fit for, where your company's at a different stage. Riverfront, as well, we have inflow forms on our website where companies can apply for funding and get into our process. So if you're a company in Southwestern Pennsylvania and you're looking for funding or you're looking for support in terms of helping you scale, Innovation Works and Riverfront are the place to go.
Well, the next time we do this podcast, I'd love to do it from your offices and be on the ground in Pittsburgh. And a podcast is something you should be thinking about too. I think just with your resources and contacts and the great intellectual firepower of that region could be a really exciting opportunity to better network and get the news out. So,
Agree.
Thanks for being with us. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much, Greg.
This podcast is a production of Gregory FCA. If you enjoyed our discussion today and want to continue exploring the transformative power of AI, please check out more episodes and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.